the topic is Dear Future Me. So I'm going to welcome our beautiful panelists. We have Bella Uivel. Bella is a graduate in the GovTech Talent graduate program, and she is on secondment to MB. Charlotte, can you unmute yourself and tell me how to pronounce your surname? Is it Hoonhout? Haven't got you yet, Charlotte. Charlotte is the Innovative Courthouses Design Office Advisor at the Ministry of Justice, and we are delighted to have you with us. And also Leah Kutu'u, who is a Policy Analyst for the Ministry of Health. Could everybody please wave your popsicle signs and make them whichever one you want to make them all feel incredibly welcome. We're very excited to be with all of you. So welcome, Ihoma. The first question I want to ask all three of you is, what does the public service of the future look like for you? Let's start with you, Bella, if we could.
Sure, yeah. The public service of the future, to me, it's a beautiful place. It's inclusive. It's full of brave people who are willing to try new things and take risks for the betterment of Aotearoa.
Right. Yeah. I love it, Bella. Yeah. Let's have that.
Coming from what Bella has said about inclusion, for me, the future of the public service looks like everybody being able to bring their authentic self to work, and also knowing that your workplace is a safe place. So it can be your bad day to needing to balance life challenges and mental health challenges, and knowing that you are fully supported at work, however you turn up day to day.
Yeah, I think for me, building on what both Bella and Charlotte have said, I am a Pacific woman in public service, and what I would like to see in the future public service is more Pacific women in leadership. I would like to see the equity pay gap for a Pacific woman be gone, non-existent, and that's for me what inclusive public service would look like.
And how do you think that we can achieve that future? What are the barriers, and what are the things that make you hopeful?
Who wants to go first? I can go first. So if we're looking at it from a mental health perspective, and there are two parts to this. Part of it is a collective movement that we all make a commitment to having courageous conversations, but it also comes down to the individual and being brave enough to be able to come up to your team and go, hey, this is where I'm at. And it's what I like to call concrete expectations. It's one of the earliest conversations I have with my teams and my managers. Here are the things that don't change about me, but here is how you can bring the best out of me. It's not your job to fix me, but it's your job to put me in the best environment so I can give you my best every day.
Yeah, I think picking up on that with the environment, it really makes a difference into how you can exist and bring your whole self to work. I also heard Lou in the beginning talk about like being 100% myself. And for me, that looks like an enabling environment. At the moment, myself and a group of Pacific public servants are trying to start a Pacific public servants network. And the reason for that is because there's a gap in the support for Pacific public servants. And it could be talking about the ethnic pay gap, or it could be talking about, how to negotiate better pay. It could be just talking about how do I be myself? How do I be a Pacific Islander in the public service? It could be any of that. So enabling environment is really important.
Yeah, and I think one of the barriers is that the public sector there's so much variation in all the different agencies, the different corners. So some places are doing a really good job in creating an inclusive environment, but what we really need to do is make sure that everyone's working towards the same objective and are progressing together to achieve that goal.
Can I just come back? I want to come back to you, Charlotte, because the mental health aspect is a really important part of the way you approach work in lots of ways. And I love what you just said. I guess I just want to really sink it into my brain that saying to people, these are some things about me, you don't need to fix me, you just need to be aware of those things about me. That's a really powerful message.
Yeah, because it's about creating a sense of safety, not just for yourself as a person who is experiencing a mental health challenge, whether that's diagnosable or whether it's just a situational thing, but it's also about a sense of safety for your team. For example, I experienced panic attacks, and each of the teams that I've been in across my GovTech grad career have had to experience that with me. So it's making sure they have a sense of safety of, I understand what's happening here, and I understand what I need to do to support this person, which is largely actually getting out of the way. But it's about being able to have that conversation in a safe space and go, you can't change this from happening, but this is how you support me, and everything is actually okay. And in each instance, we've come out of it perfectly okay. And it actually creates a space for your team and their individual cultures to come together and go, oh, actually, I would like to share something too. And the relationships really build into something powerful.
Yeah, that's really great. Leah, I'm going to throw this question at you first, and then I'd love Bella and Charlotte to both answer it as well. Sure. If you were talking to your future self, your older self, let's say your middle-aged self, what would you tell her about your young self? Like if you were to remind her of your youthful aspirations or the worldview that you have now, what would you want to remind her of?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I think the answer will change depending on what day it is or what I'm experiencing in the moment. But I did write some things down, and I ended up just asking two questions. I think I would ask myself, is institutionalized racism still a thing there? If it still is, keep fighting. And are Pacific women and men still overrepresented in the lowest end of the pay scale in public service? I think those two questions will be my guiding star. And if I talk to my middle-aged self and she's like, none of it's changed, then I have to keep going. So that'll be a way to remind myself.
Yeah. Are there any things about you now that you think that you would like to hold on to?
I think I would like to remain authentic and say things, although it might not be the right thing to say at the time, but to be authentically me and to really back myself. I think that's what I would like to remind myself. Yeah, not to lose sight of that.
Right. Charlotte, can I go to you next with that question?
Absolutely. For my future self, I would actually lean towards what I've heard other people say, which is do not stop being the person that you are now and just continue to grow. What I would remind myself is I would hope that more people have found the vocabulary to describe, this is how I am on this day, and this is what I want to become. And I want it to become less of a courageous conversation and more of a normal conversation. And this is how we help our people grow.
Yeah, beautiful. And Bella, what are you going to say to your middle-aged self?
Congratulations on becoming CIO. Sorry, it's just a joke. No, I'd say remember to uplift the people around you, because the start of my career in public sector, I was so privileged to have amazing women actually around me, uplifting me and giving me every opportunity to progress my career. So I just want to remind myself to pay it forward and, provide that to other people as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You've almost answered one of my next questions, which is think of an experience you've had so far that gives you hope that the vision that you have is achievable. And so Bella, you're saying that it's having people around you who uplift you. Do you want to tell us more about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, being part of the GovTech grad program for starters, they just give us a lot of opportunity, but there's been specifically a couple of people at MBIE who have just really gone out of their way to help me. And yeah, I've also found it really amazing that my entire reporting line, from my line manager to the CE, are all women, which is pretty cool. So that makes me really hopeful for the future for inclusion. But yeah.
Yeah, great. Either, whichever one of you wants to go next.
Can I go?
Yeah.
It's so important to have those strong female role models around you. Like, it's not a matter of really sitting down as a mentor and going, these are my experiences. Just showing up to work and seeing them in your space is inspiring in and of itself. I think is what I would add to your.
Yeah, great, Leah. Oh, sorry. I feel like I've lost audio. Can you hear me? Oh, here we go. That's why. You guys are muted. I'm going to try and unmute you. If I can't, can you? Beautiful.
Can you hear us now, Michèle?
Yes, I can. Thank you so much. Leah, can you tell us about a specific experience that you've had that has made you hopeful about the future?
I think on top of mind at the moment is meeting both Charlotte and Bella. We've had a couple of sessions practicing for this panel and just hearing their stories and how supportive they've been of my endeavors with, trying to start a Pacific Public Servants Network, and just hearing all the great things that they've been doing makes me feel super excited about what the future for public service could look like. To me, it's women, it's Pacific, it's diverse, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to ask you a question that's come through the app, and it's so I'm going to tell you what the question is. How do you deal with imposter syndrome? Because here's the thing that strikes me about the three of you is you don't have it. And
You're wrong.
So tell me about that. Am I right? You don't seem to have it.
No, I think that's I think I just put on a good face. I think, being a young woman, and I've been in the public sector for 8 months, and I've been put into some pretty incredible pieces of work, like a lot of the managed isolation and quarantine stuff. And at times I was just like, what am I doing here? How did I get here? Like, I was thriving, but on another level, I was kind of like, am I ready for this? But if you are there, if you've made it there, I just have to keep reminding myself I belong here. But it is a struggle. I'd say that. Yeah.
I can go next.
Yeah, go on.
I think part of what helps me is like acknowledging the feeling, like identifying it as it's not that you are unworthy being here. What you are experiencing at this very moment is imposter syndrome. And I got a quote from my friend, and I can't remember where it originally comes from, but it's this idea of you're allowed to be afraid of the situation you're in, but real bravery is moving forward and in spite of that fear. And that's also what real leadership looks like to me as well.
Yeah.
Just to add on an answer from my end, you've covered both of it, but there's people around me that remind me who I am, and I keep them around because they remind me of who I really am, and they uplift me. And it goes to what you were saying, have people uplift you. Yeah.
That is true, isn't it? People who reflect yourself back to you in a way that makes you feel braver and stronger is amazing. Let me go to another question. I'm having trouble reading my screen because I'm very middle-aged and my glasses are quite crap. So the next one is, do you feel any adversity being a young woman in public sector, and how do you find that with male colleagues and being seen and heard by them? Because we've heard from people this morning about the being ignored, being overlooked, people not making eye contact. A woman has an idea and there's no response, a man has the same idea and everybody's thrilled. Have you experienced any of those moments?
I've got something top of mind, if you don't mind. I have not had that experience. I've had the exact opposite, where a colleague of mine who's male, white, acknowledges the privilege that he has, and it made me feel so validated in a way. Not that I needed a white man to validate me, but it was just such a nice environment to go into, knowing that we're working from the same sort of frame of mind. And I haven't, sorry, that probably doesn't answer the question, but yeah, I've had the opposite of that.
Yeah, I think I've been lucky enough to not experience too much of that, but I do just also want to address that, you know, it's not actually just male colleagues who can be adverse. So you know, we have to remind ourselves that as women, we have to be ready to support other women as well.
Yeah, to that end, I think it's about acknowledging different perspectives, whether that comes from a woman or a man, and just going, I hear your perspective, even if mine is different, to sort of realign back to the question. I don't think I've ever given any of my male colleagues a choice as to whether I'm heard or not. Yeah, that's really the only way I can answer that question. But having strong male leadership around me that would bolster me if I needed it, as to we treat everybody at the table equally, and seeing it called out if you do see another woman at the table being spoken over and go, I'm sorry, you were interrupted, please carry on. I've seen that in a meeting and it's very powerful.
Yeah, so we can be active bystanders for other people as well, and make sure that they get their turn in the sun. Let me try this question. Give an example of how people who aren't part of the majority culture can support people of colour in being authentic at work. And when we say people of colour, I guess anybody outside of the majority culture for whatever reason. Any of you want to talk about that? How can people in the majority culture be allies, more than allies?
I think that's a really great question, and I think that's the first step into becoming an ally or becoming someone who is inclusive. It's to ask those questions and be genuine about, like, how can you help, how can you be an ally? And for me, something that I've recently been grappling with is, if you are not an expert, or if you do not have lived experience in something, it's good to pass the mic. It's good to pass on that opportunity to somebody who can genuinely speak to it, or someone who can genuinely contribute to that. So that's the one thing, that's how I would answer that question.
And seek education from the voices of lived experience. They can tell you through their own stories, this is what it's like, and you can open such a rich dialogue around, I've never understood that experience. How would you like me to support you in the future so we can avoid negative experiences and turn them into positive and growth experiences?
You also kind of have to take care at times, though, not asking the burdened people, not burdening them with educating you. Yeah. So there's a line to be walked. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Do you want to go with it?
Well, that's a really good point. It's not just about, you know, say in my example, if there's a Pacific Health team, you wouldn't necessarily always go to them for Pacific related issues. You would essentially increase the capability of the whole organization to be aware of it. But where you feel you can't speak genuinely to it, seek the expertise and educate yourself as well.
And in social activism spaces, we have this phrase that we call champions fatigue. So for people who are really championing vulnerable spaces like mental health, for example, or advocating for Pacifica, if you ask too much in a set period of time, people can really lose their energy. It's not so much they lose their spark for it, but they're doing it so constantly that you run out of fuel. So being very aware of how much you're asking of a person is really important.
That's great. Wonderful answers. Thank you. I'm going to just, I think, ask one more question. As new members of the public sector, what frustrates you about the sector, and what are your thoughts on how to fix that? And let's start with Bella.
cross-agency collaboration in a nutshell, because we're all working to the same end, which really is to serve New Zealanders, to improve the lives of New Zealanders, and sometimes it feels like the priority of the agency is more themselves and what their agenda is, where really I feel like we should be looking at a big picture and how we can actually work together for a common goal, because I feel like that's what the public sector is all about.
Yeah, either of this, Charlotte, Leah?
You go ahead.
Oh, okay. Still thinking.
Yeah.
I think for me, it kind of connects to your point. It's I get frustrated with the silos that I see.
Absolutely.
And I
Yes.
feel like sometimes people get wrapped up in the complexity of what they're trying to achieve and the work that they're doing, and they lose sight of why we're there in the first place and the society that we're trying to serve and around the betterment of New Zealand. You can't lose sight of the people on the ground. And sometimes that's easier if you actually reach across the table to shake somebody's hand and go, how can we support each other to do this?
Yeah.
So silos irritate me immensely.
I fully agree with both your points, but in my mind, it's also, it frustrates me that I don't have a line of sight with how my work directly impacts people. I'm in public service for my community, and it would be nice to sort of have that vision articulated really clearly, and for all of us to have like a common vision that we're working towards. And I think that would help with our work and how we prioritize, cross-agency collaboration or not being in silos. Yeah.
Fantastic. What great answers. Look, this is a really great session. You guys probably aren't looking at the chat as it comes through, which is all, these women are amazing. And really, they were really thoughtful and answers and tremendous depth. So I want to thank all of you. By doing something we haven't done yet today, could I get how many people have we got? We've got about 596 people on the Zoom right now. Could I ask all of you to unmute your microphones for a moment and give these three wahine a round of applause, please? Oh, that's great. You know what you are getting from the Wellington group? You're actually getting a standing ovation. So I know. Thank you so much. Ngā mihi nui to Bella, Charlotte, and Leah. That was superb. Thank you. You've filled our tanks, I think, with your own energy, and we really appreciate that. It's great.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, delighted. Absolutely.